Hey everyone, welcome to the Smart Economy podcast. Today we are joined by JP Thor, the general herder of cats at THORChain. I'm really excited for this conversation. How are you doing today, JP?
Hey Dylan, thanks for having me. I'm in Melbourne and just started this morning and looking forward to catching up on everything.
Yeah, this is your morning coffee for you. So I kind of want to just jump into the deep end. I've been a THORChain user for 3 years now, 3.5 years, since you guys were still on testnet on BepSwap. And to use THORChain back then, you kind of had to be like crypto native. You had to understand how ledger wallets work, how different blockchain networks work. And I think something that was really cool that recently happened is I swapped Bitcoin for Ethereum using THORChain, and the experience was almost as comparable to that of a custodial exchange. So I think just like in general, are crypto assets and blockchain networks at the point where we can bring on quote unquote mainstream users? Or do we still have like a little ways to go before we can achieve mainstream adoption?
It's pretty close. Most of the users are happy to jump into self-custodial wallets like Trust Wallet or Ledger or any of the wallets available to them. And THORChain has made a lot of headway into integrating directly into those wallets. For now, it's just swaps. So if you want to swap from Bitcoin to ETH, then most wallets will give you swapping options powered by THORChain. And that's actually where THORChain gets a lot of its revenue from. It's just powering those swaps. As of this stage, in terms of competition, there's not much in the way of competition for THORChain in providing those L1 swap routes. So it's got a pretty good monopoly on the whole industry right now. But your specific question on user experience, that is still yet to come. I think there's a lot of room to improve on the self-custodial experience. So right now, all the wallets in the world are single signatures because multi-sig is too difficult. And I've got a separate project to bring threshold signatures to your everyday wallets. And the idea is that you can fire up basically it's like multi-factor. You log into your bank account with two-factor. You should be able to send a crypto transaction with a two-factor authentication at the protocol level. So that's what I'm building there. But your final question are the wallets of the world ready to bring on hundreds of millions of users and give them an amazing user experience? Very close, very close. I would say probably one more cycle away and we'll be able to achieve that.
Yeah, cool. So I kind of want to take like just a quick little step back, because if you go online, there's a lot of like your thoughts on the general crypto space, why you're so passionate to build what you're building with Voltis and the Kujira Alliance and THORChain and WeSwap and all these kind of projects you have a hand in. But you kind of came into blockchain and crypto in a unique way. Similar to my path, I did not study computer science. I wasn't doing computer stuff before I entered the crypto space in 2018. So you have kind of an interesting background in that you studied basically aerospace sciences in college, and then did a little bit of time in the Air Force for the Royal Australian Air Force. So what was kind of like the first time you heard about crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin, whatever? And did it click right away? And if it didn't, what was kind of like the aha moment for you?
Sure, yeah. So I started Aeronautical Engineering. I was in the Air Force for 12 years, not a little bit. And I was flying fighters and bombers as a pilot. And in 2013, August 2013, I got dragged along by my buddy to a tech startup pitch night. And someone was pitching a Bitcoin exchange. That was the first time I've heard of Bitcoin. And I thought to myself, what on earth is this? So I went home and Googled it. And I found the white paper, read the white paper immediately. And I thought this is going to change the world. Well, at that time, I was like, oh, this is quite interesting. Bitcoin was about $150 US at the time. And then it started, now that I was watching, it started going up. And I thought, hang on, what is this thing? So I kept going back to it and going, Bitcoin. Eventually I was like, it clicked. No, this is going to change the world. It's a new financial system. It's basically first principles thinking. And I'm a big fan of first principles thinking. It's like, if you were to design money, then you would produce Bitcoin, something like it. So I literally sent an email to all my family and friends giving them detailed step-by-step instructions on how to set up Bitcoin wallet, how to buy Bitcoin, why it's going to change the world. And my price prediction in 2013 was Bitcoin was going to hit $1 million by the decade, 10 years, so 2023. I'm a factor of 10 out, so I'm slightly too optimistic. But I do think it's going to hit $1 million by the end of 2030. So, yeah, a lot on slide. But that was what Jerry.
Did the FOMO kind of like expedite your process into wanting to get into Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, back in those days, it was very hard to get Bitcoin. You had to buy P2P. You had to do these dodgy transactions, and you're like, am I going to get scammed? You had to set up paper wallets. There was no wallets in the iOS App Store, and a bunch of other things. Like it was all very difficult, and you had to download like the Bitcoin.exe for Windows laptop, the wallets and the mining software and blah, blah. So immediately I thought, hey, why can't I build a Bitcoin wallet in the App Store? So I went through the whole process of, I was learning how to ship iOS and iPad apps at the same time, try and put Bitcoin in an app. But the app stores were banning and kicking them off. Apple App Store were like blanket ban all Bitcoin apps. It was wild. And that wasn't relaxed for like 2 years later. So it was very difficult back in the day. And you had to have this really, you had to really want to do it. And it all improved over the years, but yeah.
Yeah, and now we're at the place where the Bitcoin white paper is natively installed into every Mac OS. I don't know
isn't it wild?
Yeah.
Someone in Apple must have Trojan horse that, surely. Surely, what do you reckon?
I'm thinking it was probably like a rogue employee who just kind of wanted it to see it in there. This was also during the time of Craig Wright's massive amounts of lawsuits, and he was libeling anyone who basically stored or hosted the Bitcoin white paper. So it was kind of like a giant middle finger for whatever employee did that and put them into the root files of Mac OS. But it's kind of incredible to see from 2013, the experience you're talking about where it's hard to get a wallet. You had to create your own paper wallet. You had to understand from kind of like a terminal level how to interact with and store Bitcoin. And now today we have ETFs in the US, ETFs across the world, beautiful kind of like L1 to L1 native swapping features like THORChain. So it's really nice to kind of see how far we've come. But before we delve further, I do kind of, you spent a little over a decade flying jets. What's kind of like your craziest flight experience that you had while you were in the Air Force?
There's some pretty wild stuff. I remember flying a bomber around Chinese warships in the South China Sea. And one of them painted us with fire control radar, and we're like 12 miles around it, like sneaking around it, and starting to get lit up by fire control radar. And that was wild. Or being chased by South Korean F-16s out of the country. That's it. No, it's been some pretty cool scenarios. This one time I was flying this trainer jet, and this unknown VFR aircraft had entered military airspace, and the controller jumps on and says, "Hey, can you do it?" I was just a trainee at the time. Can you do an intercept and do a visual identification of this aircraft? So I was like, yeah, right, whatever. So I rolled in, and I was, there's a jet can do like 400, 450 knots, and this little aircraft was doing like 100 knots. So I remember like I'm flying past it at 4 times the speed and trying to circle and slow right down. But I think the jet at the time wouldn't go below 150 knots. So I had to like drop flaps, drop gear, slow it right down just to get a visual idea. It's like a little Cessna flying in our airspace. Anyway, and then I was running out of fuel, so I had to like clean up and get home. There you go. Good times.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think it's really interesting kind of your background because you still have this passion for flight. And so like just in doing cursory research, I got to learn a little bit about your helicopter collection, and that you own like the first Aston Martin edition ACH 130, and that you had a really cool story with picking up the helicopter and flying it from England back to where you live in Australia. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what that experience was like, and also maybe give us some beta or some alpha on your plans for a certain global trip popping up in 2026, maybe?
Yeah, so I picked up the helicopter in England, and it's a 7-seat, 1,000 horsepower ACH 130. So it's an amazing aircraft. They're very safe, very reliable. And picked up in England, and it was going to get shipped to me on the back of the boat. I told Airbus, no, I'll come pick it up. So graduated in England, France, Italy, Greece, Egypt, flew around the pyramids, then into like over Saudi Arabia, Oman, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh. Got locked up in Miami for 24 hours because of permit problems. Escaped into Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, and then down into Australia. Since then, I've taken it to New Zealand and back, and up to Tokyo, flew around Mount Fuji, and back to Australia. So it's definitely an amazing machine to see the world, because rather than being at 30,000 feet and you only ever see flight attendants and security, you're at like 1,000 feet, and you can literally see everything. You can see like the villages in the villages. You can see the glaciers, the volcanoes, the animals, everything. So you can really explore the world for sure. It's wild. I mean, and the big trip is I'm going to fly around the world via the poles. So start in Australia, New Zealand to Antarctica. So across 1,000 miles of ocean via 2 hops on the barge into the South Pole, up and then back out again, up to the Drake Passage, which is the most dangerous water crossing in the world. It's the bottom of Chile and the north part of Antarctica there. It's actually only 400 miles, so it's very doable, but it's just wild. I know someone has had to ditch in the Drake Passage in a helicopter. Yeah. Hope that doesn't happen to us. We'll be taking 2 machines, one machine filming the other, and basically just create a whole bunch of content and put it out there for people to see. Up through America, up into Greenland, North Pole, back over the top, and then fly all back to Australia again via Mount Everest. So there we go.
Is this all like for sure happening?
Yeah, bro. All in, brother. Let's get it done. Why wouldn't I do it?
I don't know, man. I mean, like that's also another thing I want to ask. Like you clearly like have the station in life where you can just like fly around the world in your helicopters. You might have a Netflix deal. I don't know. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But like what keeps you motivated to like keep your head down and keep grinding and working on these projects you're working on? Because you could clearly be off adventuring, living like a whole life that people dream of, but you also still choose to kind of grind away and build out these systems. So like, what's this intrinsic drive to keep working on this stuff?
Because it's not finished yet. Actually, I was talking to a wife last night about it. It's never finished. So it's never the destination. It's always the journey. It's always what you want to complete. And my understanding of myself, my purpose is to move the needle on humanity. So contribute to its intelligence in the form of its memes and genes. And it sounds very simple, but actually it is. Every biological machine's purpose is to, 1, survive. And when you're good at finish surviving, then you should propagate useful information. Useful information contained genetically. So every evolution of an organism, the children are always more intelligent than parents. I mean, that's probabilistically certain. That's been happening for a billion years. That's how we're here, right? We're evolved from the single-celled organism all the way up to this very capable, advanced biological machine called the human. And also, we don't just spread information through genes. You know, since 20,000 years ago, we've developed advanced ways of communicating and storing information, and that's only accelerated. So we can talk and I can tell you useful information. So you don't need to die to pass that useful information on to your children. I can just tell you, right? And that's the memetic transfer of information. And like useful information is everything from like E=mc² to memes about art, religion, culture, everything, right? If it's useful and it helps machines coordinate, gain economies of scale, multiply resources, and defeat the universe's adversity, then it'll be passed on. Every meme has a half-life, and memes just don't die out. They have a universal half-life, and you have these high-velocity memes with like could be a Mr. Beast video or a Taylor Swift song, and then you've got these highly potent memes like E=mc², which is fundamentally, you know, we will keep that meme around for centuries until we upgrade it with more precision from observing the universe, right? Because nothing's real, nothing's true. Everything can only get upgraded with more and more understanding of our universe. And so that's our purpose, actually, is to observe the universe, learn from it, glean useful information, and tell everyone about it. And so getting back to why I do what I do in this industry, I can have a measurable impact through seeing THORChain out. THORChain is not yet complete. It's probably like only halfway there to where it should be. It only just got useful swaps a year ago through streaming swaps, and it only has just started to get that out to the industry with all its wallet integrations. It still has at least another 4 years of building to get to where it should be, which is to rival centralized exchanges, right? Which is what I started out 8 years ago to build. And like I'm not happy with self-custodial wallets. Like single signatures are dangerous. You can easily lose your money, forget keys, etc. And based on my perspective, multi-factor is much more suitable for solving self-custody. And so we should spread these memes. Voltis is a meme, THORChain is a meme, right? But it's useful information that the market might find useful and pass on. So that's what drives me to do it. If I were to just like exit stage left and, well, I did that. I mean, I took 12 months off kind of to fly the helicopters around the world and enjoy. That is boring because you don't really do anything, right? You don't really contribute to humanity and no one's going to remember you. And I mean, maybe you don't want to be remembered, but my purpose is, and I firmly believe this, is it's not about me being remembered. It's about the memes being propagated, right? And they're genes. So I have a daughter and I am intent on spreading memes that are useful, like Voltis or THORChain. So that's what drives me.
Cool. So you're building products, but you also, before we delve into the products, and I've got tons of questions and can't wait to dig further, but you also have a fund, 21E8 Capital. So I'm just curious, like you raised 5 months ago, I believe. And so just from a perspective of a builder versus like a fund manager, what are kind of, what are the feelings of you contributing and giving back that you feel that are differentiated between owning and running a fund versus building out products and propagating these memes of those products?
Actually, it was when I was setting out the multi-sig for the fund, which I started January this year, that I realized how bad multi-sig was and single sig is. So that's when I dragged in my CTO from THORChain and we were like, okay, let's build multi-sig. Let's take THORChain's TSS engine, strap it to a retail wallet, and away we go. I mean, the fund is just this very passive thing. You know, you raise a bunch of money, you have an information memorandum, and you execute the fund. And it's not an active fund. It's a very passive fund. It's an allocation strategy. But the fund is just one of many things that I do because I've got economies of scale now. I can do quite a bit because there's lots of overlap. You know, I'm not trying to build rockets and run Twitter. I don't know how Elon does it, but like, I mean, the THORChain ecosystem management is going to be the same way I'm doing the Kujira ecosystem management, which is the same way. And I'm like the product manager for Voltis. So I just jump in. Once you get an amazing team and you're like setting up every team is intense to start. Like you have to like set the culture, set the standards, get the right people in, set up all the processes where the information gets transferred, people get paid, blah, blah, blah. It's very intense in the first few weeks. You drag everyone in and then you immediately appoint a trusty number two. That's how I do it. I find a trusty number two and I charge them. I maintain the culture, the standards, the processes, and blah, blah, blah. And I rely on them and they become my main point of contact, but I also directly ensure that the product is heading in the right direction. And so every day I've got multiple teams doing multiple things, but I just jump in, read all the daily updates, make sure it's heading in the right direction, check in with the project manager. And, once a month, everyone gets paid and all I got to do is just protect the vision. It's actually quite easy. And right. So economies of scale, like once you have a system that works, you just keep repeating it. And I feel like my bandwidth is pretty maxed out right now, but I feel like I've got it. I've got it well sorted, and I'm not taking on any more. After it's funny out. So it's like if you look at all the project, it's THORChain running that the decentralized liquidity protocol. Make it, it's handed over, but make sure it's heading in the right direction and all the ecosystems talking around. But that's going super great. And then there's now the app layer, which is Kujira. So bringing those teams in, that's going to take a lot of my time and effort because we've got a big migration happen, lots of different people that are doing things. And so that's going to take some time to get going, but that's happening. And then on top of that, I've got various projects in the wallet space and like AMM space. I'm so passionate about AMMs. I've been building liquidity. AMMs are automated market, whatever. I don't like the word liquidity. I've been building liquidity since 2018. So that's one thing I'm very passionate on. And I've launched quite a few different liquidity protocols over the years. And I'm about to launch 2 more just to experiment and see. But I'm passionate about liquidity because I think liquidity is it's like it solves everything. And like if an asset is liquid and discoverable, it's not. People are paid to put the liquidity on chain or on market, and if money is on market, it's available, right? It's not volatile, it's liquid. You can easily enter and exit, and illiquidity is the cause of a lot of problems in this industry. Yeah. And so it creates all these whipsawing effects around pricing, and people become bipolar on the price, and so like liquidity I'm very passionate on, and building new liquidity perimeters is what I concentrate on doing. So I've got two more projects down that range to like experiment with, but yeah, it's all in the same sphere.
I mean, being an American right now and getting locked out of exchanges and protocols and airdrops, like we are feeling the chokehold of lack of access to liquidity. So any decentralized liquidity networks we can tap into or have access to, as anyone in the world should, regardless of nationality. It's just kind of funny being from a first world nation and feeling like I'm on par with like a North Korea or an Iran, according to my government, and being choked out from having access to liquidity. So you kind of like touched on my next point, which was going to ask how you deal with bandwidth. So we'll pivot to kind of a question that I think anyone who's looked at THORChain can grok internally, and anyone who's been following the project for years, but someone who's hearing about it for the first time today won't necessarily kind of understand that this was a massive undertaking. The underlying technology that is THORChain took years to get to. And on its face, it sounds super simple, swapping L1 assets from L1 chain to L1 chain, but it took forever to get here. So why was it such a big problem to kind of tackle? And how did you and your team kind of like break this down and get to this point we're at today, even though you feel like we're only 50% there?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it sounds so easy, but why so hard? Well, we started in 2018. The first attempt failed. It was built around multisigs, and it was just the wrong team doing the wrong tech stack. So I had to like put the project on pause. And then 6 months later, I discovered the threshold signature paper. And I thought, hey, this is going to solve a lot of the difficulties in threshold signatures. Let's kickstart it again. And we were the first major client or consumer of public threshold signatures. In fact, I think THORChain has to be the largest adversarial MPC network in the world. And we took a lot of time to like graph this MPC protocol to a state machine. And a state machine is like a Cosmos blockchain, a replicated state machine. And there was just so many problems. And as you know, it was single chain chaos snap. So we first rolled it out to a single chain, stopping on that chain. And then we shut that chain down and moved to multi-chain. And multi-chain had Bitcoin, ETH, BNB, and a bunch of other chains. But all the nuances to do with like Bitcoin and UTXOs and child pays and Pharaoh and gas attacks and dust thresholds. And we had to like, you can't like put that on a whiteboard and say, well, okay, we're going to build an L1 swapping network that you're going to have to solve X, Y, Z. Like there's no book for that. There's no like manual. So we had to just roll out there and see what would break. And so that's why we called it multi-chain chaos net. I mean, the way that the protocol attaches to even Ethereum, Bitcoin, Cosmos, it's all different. But we try to build it in a way that's very agnostic. So there's a lot of like abstraction and wrapping your heads around all the gas and stuff. So, but yes, took a long time to get right. But their approach was always, let's just get out there and see what will break. Take some risk, right? So we weren't afraid to take risk. My team must have had so much anxiety over the years because of pulling them through that. But we were out there, we took risk. We just solved all the problems as they came up. And that was the correct approach. I mean, it's the world's largest decentralized liquidity protocol. It works. You can swap Bitcoin to ETH. And it took our approach to do that. If we hadn't done it though, if we hadn't kicked off this project, oh man, like ouch. Because like where would we be today without it? There's no convincing alternative because the two other pseudo in the sphere like Chainflip and Maya were inspired and like kicked off by us as well, like to push and push those teams to like fork and grow, and we invest in them as well. So like the whole industry is like spawned through our original efforts. But if we hadn't done it, like would be pretty disappointing. Like what alternatives? I mean, I hope someone would have come up and built it. I mean, THORChain is open source. Like you can clone it today. If you think THORChain is a good thing, like just go and fork it and build an alternative. Like something were to ever happen to THORChain, because it's like, I mean, something can happen to Bitcoin. There's always a non-zero chance something can happen. Then we want alternatives. Like I truly believe we're just into decentralized liquidity of any flavor, right? It doesn't have to be THORChain. So that's like, but it's hard, but we got it done.
Yeah, I mean, at its core, like basically THORChain provides the ability for the Rune token to interact with another L1 network. And then if you're swapping Ethereum for Bitcoin, you're basically just trading Ethereum for Rune and then Rune for Bitcoin. And the beauty is the magic that works behind the scenes for THORChain to kind of like do that. I remember when I first started playing with the multi-chain chaos net, Ethereum fees were high and Bitcoin fees were high because this was 2021. And very recently, I was performing ETH to Bitcoin swaps, and the fees were within like a small, less than 10% difference, were comparable to centralized exchanges. And what was really cool was I was swapping from my Ethereum wallet to my Bitcoin wallet. And so you mentioned, like, where would we be without this?
So this is how it works. So you got two pools. You got Bitcoin Rune and then Rune ETH. You put a little bit of Bitcoin in to there, and then the Rune goes from there into there, and then the ETH pops out there. So all that happens is Bitcoin gets added to the Bitcoin pool, a little bit of Rune moves over to the ETH pool, and then ETH goes out. So the user sees Bitcoin in, ETH out. And the reason why it's all Rune paired is because the system has to sense the TVL on the network in order to ensure that the nodes are always bonding more. So it secures the Bitcoin and ETH with the Rune bond. And nobody can steal the Bitcoin and ETH because they are bonding more in Rune than they would ever get back in Bitcoin and ETH. So that's how it works. And that, like, the incentive pendulum we came up with in 2019, it works. Had a few tweaks over the years. But no one's really kind of copied that, and although they should. And I mean, security, liquidity, and all the incentive structures. So like paying fees to liquidity providers, paying fees to the nodes and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think where the simplicity of what THORChain offers, where it gets lost on people, is like someone who is an L2 maxi for, I don't want to say any L2s, but they're just like, we can just use bridges and we can just bridge between different assets. But they don't realize that if that bridge goes down, then you've lost your access to moving between networks. So that's kind of what the beauty of THORChain is L1 to L1 swaps. And something that's really kind of amazing about THORChain's operations is how Rune is used to provide economic security, which secures these LPs and the nodes that operate. So could you just kind of like Eli 5 for someone who's never dug into THORChain, how Rune is used to provide economic security, which actually secures the whole THORChain ecosystem?
Yeah, so if there's $100 million worth of Bitcoin and ETH in the network, then the system will ensure that there's $200 million of security as a minimum to protect that Bitcoin and ETH. And there's a incentive pendulum that is either paying liquidity providers or paying nodes. And it splits between the two in order to target that 2-to-1. Right. And if it's less than 2-to-1, then the nodes get paid more. If it's more than 2-to-1, then the nodes get paid less. And so the system's always just decided that it wants to maximizes liquidity and maximizes return to liquidity providers with a minimum set of security. And it's a very simple concept, but it ensures that no node or collection nodes can steal funds.
So other than ensuring economic security, what role does Rune have in the broader THORChain ecosystem? I know that like economic security and providing a secondary asset for LPs is great.
No, that's it. It's a liquidity and security asset. That's all it is. Yeah, it's not designed to be money. It's not designed to be held. You should only put it in the network to use in the network. Yeah.
And for anyone who's never kind of like looked at a calculator, you can kind of derive what you think the price of Rune might be based off of the assets that are used in the LPs. So like the price of Bitcoin and Ethereum and Avalanche and Atom and Doge and all these other coins, as they rise and fall, they also impact the price of Rune. So it's really fun to kind of like play around with Rune price calculators to kind of envision what you think the price of Rune will be based off of other assets. So it's kind of the simplicity that makes Rune like kind of like a hardcore asset.
Yeah, it's like it behaves like an ETF asset because it's coupled to the value of the assets in it. So it like if you, I mean, at the moment it should be a lot more liquid than it currently is. But then it basically is an ETF asset. It senses the prices of all the assets in the pools, and it's coupled. And like we just rolled out Rune pools. So Rune pools is this idea that you can just add Rune into this single-sided aspect, and it basically sits on the other side of all the contributions to Bitcoin and ETH, and it gives you like network-wide exposure with a single pool.
And so you mentioned that THORChain's code base is open source, and out of this has spurred Chainflip and Maya. So now we have other kind of L1 to L1 swapping protocols that are launching. This increases the resiliency of the code base by allowing these other teams to maybe onboard blockchains that have less traffic and volume than maybe THORChain is looking at. And a lot of these teams are empowered and enable wallet providers to integrate them via SwapKit. So can you share a little bit about what SwapKit is and what its like general vision is into onboarding custodial wallet providers and really making it easier for third parties to integrate THORChain, Maya, Chainflip, what have you, into the backend processes?
Yeah, so SwapKit was spun out of THORSwap, which was spun out of BepSwap, which was I wrote the first version of BepSwap back in 2019. So SwapKit is an aggregator toolkit to allow wallets to easy plug into cross-chain liquidity with a very simple quoting interface API, and it basically wraps all the networks. But it doesn't just wrap THORChain; it wraps Maya and Chainflip, and it tries to give the user a selection of quotes and routes with different times and prices available on each route, so the user can choose. In this way, this is good for THORChain actually, because SwapKit presents this selection of routes for the user. Then you can't it's good for the protocols, as good for THORChain, and it makes decentralized liquidity more resilient. It's not dependent on one protocol, because these protocols have a lot going on. There's a lot of code there, and anything can happen to any protocol at any time. There's always a long tail risk, right? And this ensures that the user has swaps available to them, which is important. And also these protocols are jurisdictionally independent. THORChain is not really based on any geography in the world. It kind of was pulled up in Australia, but it's definitely spread out. There's no owner of THORChain except for the nodes. I don't even know how you would cease and desist. You can't cease and desist THORChain because there's no understanding allowed to. There's no company, right? It's wild, right? Chainflip is based on Germany. I don't even know where Maya protocols, but I think it's somewhere in South America. It doesn't matter at the end of the day, because it's all a global network of nodes that serves these networks. They truly are decentralized. It's wild when I think about it sometimes. I'm like, man, how would you shut down THORChain? There's no leverage anywhere. There's a treasury that pays the ecosystem, but now with ADR 18 and whatnot, there's more ways that the protocol can fund itself through its own initiative. You would send all the nodes a letter, but all the nodes are distributed over the world. And what do the nodes do? They just rock up and run software and leave. They don't ever hold funds. They're not independently processing transactions. So it truly is a decentralized network with its own life of its own now, and it's sustainable. It makes enough money to pay for itself. So.
Yeah, one of the favorite attacks for decentralized networks by politicians here in the US is to highlight how criminal activity is done on top of these networks, let alone the fact that they willingly ignore how banks facilitate criminal activity. That's a whole other topic for another conversation. But within the past month or so, and we're recording this in the first third of September, I believe at some point in August, there was kind of a hit piece that came out that said X amount of nefarious activity is being facilitated on THORChain. And, this is a free market protocol. It's open source. Anyone has fair access to it. Are there ways in which THORChain can limit what sort of endpoints can access the network or use it? Or is it just kind of completely out there and in the wild, and it's on the front end interfaces to kind of facilitate these censorship principles?
Okay, so front ends charge fees to provide services and charge fees. So they should have the ability to choose who to do business with, right? So if I have a service and a bunch of people rock up, I don't have to service everyone, right? So the front ends have the prerogative to choose who to do business with, right? They're centralized. They have a website. They have an app store. You don't need to force them to do business with anyone. THORChain is a protocol that is not able to choose, because there is no way that you can decide a standard of okay, this address must look like this, and the protocol will accept it, right? Because there's no on-chain subjectivity when it comes to addresses and transactions, right? The subjectivity is created on these off-chain databases and the centralized databases as well. So how do you hook a centralized database into a decentralized network? Okay, so you have, THORChain is run by 106 nodes. So you're going to give API keys to 106 nodes, or are you going to how are you going to get that subjectivity to a decentralized network? It's actually the whole thing just falls over and also THORChain changes the layers out every 3 days. So not only, let's say you're able to get 106 nodes to get an API key to query your centralized database, which has a subjective opinion on addresses and transactions, right? And then you get those 106 nodes to subscribe to that service and rate these transactions. Then 3 days later, 4 get kicked out and 5 get pulled in. And so every 3 days, you have to go find these new nodes and get them to subscribe to your centralized database. So it's just not happening, right? And there's no leverage. THORChains aren't hosted on websites, on app stores or anything, like the nodes. So you have to continue leverage. You can run a Thor node on a completely bare metal server, just connect to the internet, right? So you end up centering the entire internet to chase down these Thor nodes. So it truly is a decentralized platform that just keeps on churning. And it's built on that for a reason. So I don't see how censorship can happen at the base layer unless, and I thought long and hard about the potential pathway of leverage there. But for centralized apps and services that there's leverage everywhere. App Store has leverage. Google Play Store has leverage on you. Even hosting a website, there's various ways that people can leverage you. Yes, just because you're sitting behind a URL. So censorship and address screening will happen at the interface layer where there is leverage, and fundamentally, so businesses can choose who to do business with, but the protocol should be forever free of address screening. Yeah.
Cool. So THORChain's code base adds resiliency with chain flip and Maya and whatever other protocol providers come after and build on top of THORChain's code base. SwapKit builds the resiliency of these protocols to be added to self-custodied wallets by integrating these API options for wallet providers. And so we see at a protocol level and at kind of a wallet provider level, the resiliency of the THORChain code base and the ability to tap into these THORChain enabled or built upon networks. When I was at Rare Evo a few weeks ago in Vegas, I also got to ride in the THORChain Cybertruck. I got to meet a DEX that's building on top of these protocols as well. Eldorado DEX, shout out to that team. So what now does it look like at the application layer? And hopefully we can use this to kind of go into the work that you're doing with Kujira. At the application layer of the DEXs, what does THORChain's kind of investing into or building relationships with? And I'm wearing my Shapeshift sweater too. So maybe you can expand upon the relationships with Eldorados and the Shapeshifts and the DEXs that you guys collaborate with. What do those relationships look like? How do you go about building and expanding upon them and maybe even onboarding new DEXs to kind of integrate these protocols into the back end and help make THORChain and THORChain's code base more resilient by having more DEXs use it?
So the incentives are already there. Since 2019, we built affiliate fees. Or 2020 actually. Affiliate fees allow an interface to get their own fees. So Trust Wallet makes significant money per month. I think the last time I checked, they make $1 million a month on integrating THORChain and affiliate fees. So any large wallet or service provider should wrap SwapKit and charge these affiliate fees and immediately be self-sustaining. I know a bunch of wallets now that now make enough money to just pay for themselves and their operations from just THORChain affiliate fees, right? So the incentives are there. Eventually, because the incentives are correct, so not only do these wallets need THORChain for the swapping features for the users, but they also want THORChain because they'll get paid a lot of money to do it from their own fees. So it's going to happen. From my perspective, these protocols have won. THORChain has won, right? SwapKit has won based on the inbound that's coming and the agreements that are in progress right now to deliver on for the integrations. And once these wallets plumb into these networks, I don't think they're not going to unplumb and switch providers. So yeah, it's coming. In the next, that's why I'm very excited, because just at this point, where, like you're saying at the start of the call, like you could be off, exit stage after enjoying life. Well, that's quite boring actually. Or from my point of view, this is just the moment that THORChain like goes for this crazy run. And so why wouldn't I be at the in the arena, helping it, being part of it, enjoying it, shipping it, making sure it achieves its vision, for sure. Because there's a lot of change coming. The app layer, protocols, interfaces, multi-sig, there's a lot of change coming, and I could be part of that. So why would I not be in the arena? So that's why.
I think that's one of the things that has always attracted me to THORChain, and like why it was so easy to kind of just say like, hell yeah, after reading the white paper and just like wanting to get my hands dirty and play around with the protocol, is that at its core, it's these economic incentives that are used to align the users and the good actors to keep propagating the network. And so you have Rune as it's an economic security model that secures THORChain. You have these wallets that are integrating support for THORChain, Maya, Chainflip, because they do get fees. So now there's a way for them to get revenue. And so this is kind of like very first principles, act in your best interest by using our technology, and you will reap the rewards of the economic incentives. So kind of like zooming out of THORChain, now there's like the next layer. And so you've mentioned Voltisig, but I want to touch on the Kujira Alliance, because being born out of this is the app layer. And so I've done a little bit of digging around, but I haven't like been able to grok enough to Eli 5 what the vision for the app layer is. So through the Kujira Alliance, like what is the THORChain app layer going to become? And what are kind of like the first, I guess, dApps or use cases you envision for THORChain's app layer?
Yeah, so THORChain has never had an app layer. It's an app layer allows a bunch of DeFi protocols to be built on top. And we didn't want it to be just random apps doing random things. And we had to ensure that the base layer was stable and works, right? That's how THORChain makes its money from its base layer. And now that we achieve stability and we're hard forking up to the required versions to deliver an app layer, we have two options. One is we can just roll out the features and let anyone deploy any amount of code on THORChain. Or we could do it in a coordinated fashion, ensuring that the protocol is not built in a parasitic way, and there's no like weird incentive loops. So, and then Kujira happened, and Kujira effectively like had liquidity issues and was in a deleveraging spiral. So I stepped in, me personally, to backstop them, and in return for them to migrate to THORChain, right? So that's happening right now, and they will help us deliver the main DeFi apps across the system.
I just want to interject and ask you, why were you so bullish on Kujira then, and what the team was building? Because
the team for 3 years has been building apps on an app layer. And that's what THORChain wants. So it's a perfect marriage. Like, they've been running a base layer protocol, but that base layer was just a vanilla Cosmos chain. So now we get to import all the technology and their understanding of how to build it. THORChain's app layer will be different in the sense that its apps will be able to plumb into its base layer, because its base layer has functionality, like some pretty epic. I mean, it's got base liquidity and stuff like that. So we have to build it in a certain way that exposes that liquidity to the app layer and ensure that the fees are shared between base and app, and then roll it all out. So it's probably gonna take 12 months, to be honest, to migrate, build something that works. But the end goal is going to be pretty epic. You'll have this kind of sex-like experience, centralized exchange experience, where with this in a single wallet, you'll be able to onboard and access all these DeFi verticals, which pay the base layer well.
We have to come up with another way to refer to custodial exchanges, because I think using it like sex-like layer, you have to explain it what it is every time you say it. But this was a point of curiosity that arose. So there's going to be a new token that replaces the old Kujira token. It's going to be the Rookie token, which allows stakers to kind of capture revenue that's generated from these applications that are running on top of Kujira's new app layer. And I'm wondering if there's any kind of internal competition with the new Rookie token, and the Rune token. Oh, Rookie, sorry, yeah.
No, it's designed in a way that they work well together. So the Rookie token is just a fee switch real yield token We'll have a vault, you'll stake it, you'll earn USDC, done. And all the Ruji apps send revenue to the base layer so that the Thor nodes so we ensure a fat protocol thesis. So we don't want the applications to get too top heavy on THORChain and create weird incentives. So we want to make sure that the base layer is always paid. All right, it gets paid through gas fees, but also should get paid through liquidity fees, and that should be enforced. And then we keep everyone happy. And we'll see how we go. But super excited to get building with the team and shit this. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man. We're kind of nearing the end of our time, so we'll zoom out.
I'm going to go get a coffee with my wife and daughter. So as I'm watching the clock, because I can't wait to get out of here. I can see them.
No worries. So then, yeah, just kind of like zooming out, what's the vision for how Voltisig will kind of play out in these ecosystems? Are we looking at a world where I no longer have to use my ledger anymore? I can just use
yes.
my
phone. So Voltisig, I'm so excited on. So Voltisig should replace your hardware wallet, your Chrome extension, and your single sig wallet. It should replace all your wallets. It'll be the wallet of everything because it's so powerful. Like, it is safer than a hardware wallet. It is more useful than a mobile wallet. It has like transaction policies and alerts. Because it's because there's no private key, never exists. It uses multi-party computation the same way that THORChain works, and it gets two of your devices together to co-sign transactions, right? And you log into your Gmail or your bank account with two-factor. So you better log into your Chrome extension or your laptop with two-factor. Or not log in, but just send transactions. So you'll be able to see all the funds. But the second you want to send transactions out, you have to like co-sign it with your iPhone or Apple Watch or Chrome extension or whatever. So there's no private keys. You can't get phished. Or you can still send your money to an attacker if they can convince you. But there's like election barriers of but the convenient. It's very easy to like if you're out with your phone, you don't want all your money to be on your phone. So if you lose your phone or it gets broken into, like you losing your money. So you kind of do want this two-factor, and we're building it in such a way that other wallets can integrate it, right? So once again, collaborative approach rather than trying to like monopolize everything. We're building in a way so like all the existing wallets can import from Voltisig's technology and give their users these vaults, which are much safer. So 100%, once Voltisig is like fully distributed, download it, use it. It's finally a way for you to get rid of your hardware wallets.
And is this going to protect like my friend who I just talked into getting Ethereum and using MetaMask for the first time? Is this going to protect them from signing a malicious link and like getting their whole wallet drained from just trying to collect a quote unquote free airdrop that was a phishing scam?
Right. So the one of the main problems is on like MetaMask or hardware wallets is the screen and compute available is tiny, right? So it can't do address checking and fish checking and like, especially in your ledger, you're just like blind signing stuff, right? Whereas co-signing, like you create a transaction on your MacBook or whatever, and it will pop up on your iPhone with the full transaction, right? And this is like a 6-inch screen, right? So you better literally read everything. You can go away to address checks and go, oh yeah, you're about to like lose your money or whatever. And it's just a better user experience. It gives you more information before you sign it, right? So it just won't compete. And it uses your familiar hardware. There's no private keys. It's all multi-factor. It's much more rich and familiar to you. You're not carrying your own hardware wallets. But the best thing about it, there's no private keys anywhere. So if you download a malicious PDF, there's nothing to steal.
Cool. So my final question then is, you mentioned at the beginning of the conversation that THORChain is 50% there. What does in the next like 1 to 5 years, what does THORChain being 100% there for you? What does that look like?
It's the journey, not the destination. No, 90% there. The protocol should be it should be everywhere, pervasive. It should be stable. It should be profitable, sustainable. It should be alive, right? It should be working. And then, there's a lot of change with the app layer and more chains and features that we're rolling out. But ideally, the base layer, all the base layer should be doing is just maintenance and more ways to integrate chains. Right now, we're putting a lot of complexity into the base layer. So we can relax all that for sure.
Awesome. JD, if someone listened to this and they want to become a new THORChain user, they want to become a new developer in the ecosystem, anything beyond that or in between, what's the best way they could reach out to you or to the broader THORChain dev community?
Just follow me on Twitter, JP Thor. It's a stream of consciousness. But actually, my Twitter is an amazing way to reach out to very smart people in the world very quickly. Like, you'll be surprised how quickly I can like tweet and boom, reach anyone in the world very quickly. So I keep my Twitter high engagement, max output, and like level 11, just to like attract people's attention. Right? If you're just a boring person on Twitter, you're not getting anyone's attention. So just be aware, my Twitter is pretty crazy sometimes, but it works, and I can reach out to and get stuff done so quickly. So that's why I run that Twitter.
Awesome. Yeah, I can attest to it. Your Twitter account is very fun to follow. You're constantly tweeting throughout the day. So yeah, anyone listening to this, go give it a follow. And also JP will respond to you. You slapped me with that follow back almost immediately, which was very much humbling and appreciated. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us here. I love THORChain, have loved it for years. Got introduced by Eric Voorhees and the Shapeshift boys, and have been hooked since day one. So yeah, keep on building what you're building. And this was truly just like a fun conversation to prepare for and to have. So I appreciate your time, JP.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Talk soon.
Cheers.